Okay, so the business is requiring us to install some sort of messaging system. So we're going to install Microsoft Exchange 2010 into our environment. Now I know it is 2022 and 2010 is all but probably disappeared in most organizations. But for the purpose of this lab environment, my plan is to install 2010 on 2008 R2 as a starting point, and we'll use this as the foundation to migrating up through the other various Exchange versions and even Windows Server operating system versions. Um, so we'll set up 2010 in a way that it's fully functioning. It's mails coming in, mails going out. We can externally access our webmail and those type of things. Get it all up and running as if it was in production use, and then in a coming video we'll do a migration, and we'll probably go through each iteration of Exchange. So the next one will be Exchange 2013. So today's video is purely on the Exchange 2010 install, and just to give you a bit of an understanding on where our network sits at the moment. We've configured our pfSense box, we've got our domain controller, we've got a client PC. We'll add a few more of those client PCs once we've got our Exchange up and running. We've got our Veeam server, so that's currently just backing up our domain controller at the moment. And now we've got our Exchange 2010 server, and our Veeam server will back that server up as well. So I've already gone ahead and pre-prepared a 2008 R2 server fully updated. I've got another video just shows you that process of building a 2008 R2 server in VMware Workstation. It's pretty much was the same process to get this 2010 server up and running. It's got a computer name, Mail Exchange 2010. I've already given it a static IP address of, not IPv6, IPv4, 10.12. So essentially what we need to do is just get the prerequisites installed. So just from this list here, we need to get .NET 3.5 Service Pack 1. There's a bunch of features from on the Server 2008 R2 platform that needs to be installed. And then there's this Office 2007 filter pack. It's an optional installation, but always recommended to have. So let's start with these prerequisites, and then we'll move on to our Exchange 2010 install. So the .NET 3.5 Service Pack 1 is quite an easy feature to install through the Server Manager, and it's just a matter of ticking this box and accepting the defaults, and just going through and clicking next, and install. That will probably just take a moment. The next component is just a bunch of 2008 R2 features, which you find on the Microsoft website under the 2010 prerequisite section. I've already got a text file with the actual PowerShell command, which will actually install all these features for us automatically. So under Microsoft, under Exchange and 2010, got this little text file, and depending on what it is that we're Exchange role we're installing on our server, we'll decide which option you would choose here. For the purpose of this installation, we're actually installing all of the roles. We won't be doing the unified messaging setup because I don't have a telephony system that we're going to be hooking up into Exchange, but this is the command that I'll use to install all the other features required for a server that's going to have all of the other Exchange roles installed. So .NET's installed, that's great. So I'll come in here and just run this command, copy that. I might just put in oh no, that's going to go. Beautiful. This will probably take a couple of seconds. I might just time lapse it. Okay, and that's completed and it's done a reboot. So we'll just quickly install, log back in. The other part there is just to install the Office 2007 filter pack. So we quickly grab that from the file share, the Microsoft Exchange, and I think I'll just put it in here. Here's the filter pack, run as administrator, and this will be all but a few seconds done. Now we're probably ready for the install. I'll just do another reboot. Every time I install something, I just like to reboot the server. It takes just a couple of seconds to do, and it's probably worthwhile in the long run. We don't want any complications during our our Exchange 2010 install. Let's go away, quick reboot. Well, that is just coming back up and it's just about done. So we're going to mount the Exchange 2010 install ISO. So I've already have it downloaded on my lab server. So I'm just going to mount it. So that there are two ways. Obviously, we can mount it within the OS, or we can mount it via the virtual machine. This time I'm just doing it by the virtual machine because 2008 R2 doesn't have a native mounting mechanism. I think from 2012 onwards, you can actually mount ISOs natively in the OS. So I don't really want to install any third-party tool on the R2, the 2008 R2 install. So I'm just going to mount Exchange off the ISO from my lab server and make sure that it is connected. And in we go. And let's run the setup. It's probably be a bit of a blast from the past for a lot of people. So we've got a couple of prereqs already up and running. Just choose the only languages from the DVD, which is the ISO, and let's go and install Exchange. Next, end user license agreement. Don't need to report any errors to Microsoft. Two options here. I just click custom. I'm pretty sure the typical installation is all I need anyways, because it's going to select the same options, but just to give us a bit of an idea of what we could set up on this server. So this server is going to be the Mailbox server, which pretty much hosts our databases, so our mailboxes, client access role as well, so all the features required for end user access, so whether it's coming in from Outlook or from the web or from our mobile phones, for instance, this feature is going to configure that up for us. And then there's the hub transport role, which is just the way mail moves around our Exchange server, how it comes in, how it goes out. And by default, we get the management tools. I mentioned the unified messaging role. We don't have a telephony system, so we're just going to ignore that one. Our Exchange server is not sitting on the edge of our network, so we're leaving that off the table as well. I'm pretty sure the edge transport role is installed on its own, so it doesn't actually have any other roles to be configured. Let's go next. So just after an organization name for Exchange, so I'll just call this JT Airlines. Just a quick question, whether or not we have any Outlook 2003 clients in our environment. We won't, so we'll say no to that. Is this client access server going to be accessible from the internet? Yes. And we are going to use mail.jtairlines.com as the address that will serve this client access server. Do not want to be part of the customer experience improvement program. I'm sure nobody really cares now for Exchange 2010. And it's going to do a few little checks, so make sure that all our prerequisites are installed. So this warning message here is just telling us that our schema, so our Active Directory schema is going to be updated. That's certainly going to be true, seeing as we do not have an Exchange server in our environment. It's also telling us that once we install Exchange 2010, we would not be able to install Exchange 2007, for instance, so that's not really a problem for us. Oh yes, I've seen this before. This is just saying there's a particular service that is not set to automatic for some reason. I'm not sure if that's just something with regards to Windows. Port sharing service. Yeah, it's just set to manual for some reason. Let's just change that to automatic. Apply. Okay, it is running. Let's do a retry. Starting to look happier now. Beautiful. Alright, I'm going to click the install. This will probably take about 20 minutes, so I might just time lapse this video and we'll be back on the other side. Alright, so that is complete. No errors, which is always good. Let's hit finish and straight into the console. Generally, what I like to do after an Exchange 2010 install is just to do a quick reboot. Saying that we should get the latest updates. We will do the latest updates at some point. We're not going to be worried about it too much. Just for now, do a reboot. And we'll start configuring the server. Okay, so we are back up and running. Let's log back into our Exchange server. I'll just pin that to the taskbar. Also the shell. Let's log back into the console. Let's have a look. Just telling us about our license. We've got 120 days, which is okay. So I normally configure this server sort of top to bottom. I just go through the different sections here. So starting at the organizational part of the configuration, there's nothing I need to do here. Not doing any federation trusts at this stage. So the first thing is just the mailbox database. Pretty sure I can rename it here. Yep. So I'll just call it MBX DB1, mailbox database 1. And all the general settings I just leave alone. Don't have any availability groups. We will set up availability groups in a coming video. Just checking to see if there's anything else here I need to change. Offline address book is fine. Yep, that's all okay. So I think that was the only thing I needed to make a change. Client access. Don't need to change anything here. Or do I need to change anything there? So that's fine. Hub transport, remote domains, that stays the same. Accepted domain, so we do need to make a change here. We'll add a accepted domain, so everybody will have jtairlines.com email addresses. Just to that and put it like that. It is an authoritative domain. That means that this that emails with jtairlines.com is going to be delivered to this exchange organization, or in particular this server. And we want to make it the default. Keep jtairlines.internal in there. Sometimes I get rid of that because I don't really find a need for it, but I'll leave it there. Email address policy I do change. So the default policy, and what I'm really concerned about is what the SMTP email address is. So it's going to be at jtairlines.internal by default, so we're going to change that up. And the way that I like to see everyone's email address is the first name, initial, and last name. So, for instance, as an example of John Smith, his email address will be jsmith@jtairlines.internal, but we don't want that either. So we want it to be jtairlines.com, so we make it jtairlines.com. So it'll be jsmith@jtairlines.com. And we'll set that as the reply address. So that kind of becomes the default address. Everyone will still get an @jtairlines.internal address as well, which is okay. And I want to apply that policy to everybody now. And we have an issue here. Let's have a look. SMTP jtairlines. Default policy. Back. Just wonder if that changes if I get rid of this. Doesn't. This is can't be changed on the default email address policy. If that be the case, let's go for a new email address and we'll call it JT Airlines policy. Again, I don't reckon I've had to do this before in the past. Yes, we're going to apply this to the entire domain, so I'll just leave it at the top level. All recipient types. Don't have any need for any conditions. jsmith airlines.com. Let's try that immediately. New. What's to perform this operation? Might be a need to update some permissions, I think. Let's have a look back in Active Directory. Let's check out administrator account. Of pretty sure that's the key one. Organization management is the main one. Okay, let's back in here. That looks like it's applied, but not for the user. So there'll only be one user. We'll have a look at it. Oh, there's the second one, but that's okay. This user account, so it still has the jtlines.internal. Something just in here. Let's go back and just check and see if this was a permission issue. Let's reply how I normally go about it. Immediately. Copy perform. Okay, let me just pause this video and I'll come back after I've done a little bit of troubleshooting. Okay, so I've just applied that policy now and it looks like it's working. Basically, it was just a permission issue with the administrator account. I just needed to go in here under the user, under security settings, advanced, and just tick this box. It is because I installed Exchange with this particular account. The permissions are a little bit different to the standard user. So that's all good. Just to prove it again, I'll just hit apply and done. And if I just quickly sneak ahead here, go back to that mailbox, check email addresses, but the policy's been applied, is what we want to see. So back to hub transport, so that's the policy that's sorted. Okay, so transport rules, we don't need to play around with at this stage. Change any of the global settings, we don't have any with Edge. No journal rules, we just need to set up a send connector. So send connector is an organizational wide setting, and this is basically when we're trying to send something outside of this organization, it will use the send connector. So I usually just call it main send connector. You might call it internet or something to that effect. I always just use custom, and I'm routing with using email addresses. This is kind of the standard setup for most organizations. Don't need any network settings. We're just happy to route automatically. Source server, it's only going to be this server, so that's fine. Ready to go. So we have a send connector, so now we can send emails outside of this organization. Okay, so that's hub transport. We don't do any unified messaging. So now this is the server specific settings. So we've got our Exchange server. Need to enter a key, which I'll do offline. We do need to manage certificates. That's going to be an important part. Let's have a look at that right now. So what we'll do here is import an Exchange certificate. I already have one ready to go. I picked up this certificate for about 20 bucks online. It's just a SAN certificate. I think I've got 5 domain names associated to it. And apply it to our Exchange 2010 server. Port quick, and just apply our services to it. Effectively just all these services: IMAP, POP, Simple Mail, and IIS. Yep. Write the certificate. Overwrite the default SMTP service, and ready to go on that front. Okay. Mailbox, I don't think we need to do here. It's all pretty straightforward. Client access. Okay, so we've just got to map our addresses. So out of the box, we've got our web addresses. The virtual web addresses. So by default, this is how it's configured. The way that I normally operate my Exchange servers, I think most people do, is to match our external URL with our internal URL and just use a split DNS setup so that we can resolve these addresses either internally or externally off the network. So I've got a PowerShell script that I actually run to fix all that, so I might just leave that for now. It really pertains to everything here. So we'll come back and fix up those virtual addresses. Receive connectors. We have 2. The one that we really need to consider the most is the one that's running on port 25, this one. And out of the box, it's not allowing anonymous users to send mail to the server. Now, there are other ways to manage this through third parties, or an edge server or something to that effect, so that you don't have to choose the anonymous users section here, but I'm going to click anonymous users because I'm going to have mail from the internet directly coming into our Exchange server. I'm okay with that. Apply. Okay. Unified messaging, and now we're just at the recipient. Basically, I'll put a few more details in here as we move along, but all I really want to do is just create all the mailboxes. Let's go mailbox for our existing users, and basically should be able to just go select all. Okay, next. I only have one database, so no problems there. Don't have any policies to be concerned about, so I can leave it alone. Go mailbox. All done. Now I've got 20 users, 21 users with the administrator, Discovery Search mailbox as well, default Exchange mailbox, all set up and ready to go. Okay, so we'll just do a couple more things and Exchange can be considered done. Let's go Microsoft Exchange 2010, go back, having it Exchange 2010 script. I've got a little script here that will run to just configure the virtual directories, as well as just create a couple of distribution groups based on users' divisions. So in an earlier video when we imported the 20 users from a CSV. They also imported with the attribute of division. So somewhere management, the division was management, somewhere in the division marketing, information technology, and crew. So we'll create a few distribution groups down here based on that information. And I've also created a couple of dynamic distribution groups based on location, so what state they might be in. So one for Victoria, one for New South Wales. I don't actually have anybody working in our New South Wales location as of yet, but as soon as users come on board and they're tagged with the New South Wales information in their attribute of state, they'll automatically be applied to this dynamic distribution group, and also creating a mail contact as well in Exchange. So we're just going to run this, and I'll run this slowly. I've not run it before, so I just quickly wrote this out just a little while ago. Only took a few minutes, but I just want to make sure, especially this bit. Actually, what I'll do, I'll just put a little enter in there. Copy. So we're opening up our Exchange shell. We're going to import the module Active Directory. So obviously we get all the Exchange shell commands straight out of the box because it is an Exchange shell. Just going to import the Active Directory commands, which is going to allow us to get access to some users. And it seemed to work. There's no errors. I might just quickly, if I type in crew users, yeah, there we go. We've got some information there. Okay, so I'll just set up these virtual directories. So basically, the internal and external URLs for all our virtual directories are going to be exactly the same, which is the mail URL variable, which is https://mail.jtairlines.com. Then obviously / whatever the virtual directory is, so OWA, ECP, offline address book, and so forth. So let's do that now. I'll just put also enabling Outlook Anywhere as well. So you've connected, don't need that anymore. And let's go punch that in, see, handles it, paste. Beautiful, no errors. Okay, the screen might just look a little bit different. I had a few little issues just running this new distribution group. I failed to add the attribute component to the variable that I created from the get AD user PowerShell command. So I've just fixed that up. The other thing is also that I'm specifying where I want to store this group in Active Directory. I've created a new OU called groups, which is ready just here. So I didn't have that just at the beginning of this video. So ready now to, I'm just going to rerun these group commands again, just in case something's gone wrong, just to refill those with the correct users, and I'll just double check. Yep, that looks good. Let's run the distribution group command. Beautiful. And let's run the dynamic distribution group. That's worked as well, and we'll create a new mail contact as well. So we're just filling up or populating our Exchange server with some information. That's worked as well. So we'll jump back into the console. Let's refresh this page. So we've got our standard distribution groups, which we manually update. And then we've got our dynamic distribution group. So it's based on the state attribute of a user. If it's comes in as under the condition, is that right? Look, I'm just waiting for that to. Oh, here we go. Here's the filter. So it's just finding anybody with any user that has the state of province equaling New South Wales. This should be actually 0, which it is because I don't have any users. New South Wales. Let's just have a look at this filter. Review. Yep, everybody else is Victoria. So they're among that distribution group. And if we go into our standard ones, we see our members here. So that's our marketing team, our management team, the IT team, and our crew users, which I think had the most. Yeah, there's a few in there. There we go. So coming along, there's our mail contact as well that I created. So that will appear in the address book, the global address book. Yep, it will. It's good. So that's Exchange semi-populated now. So let's just do one thing. I'll install Office on client machine and we'll see what happens when we try to attach Outlook to Exchange. Okay, so let's install Office. So 13, it's in an ISO format. So what I might do, I might actually do this way because Windows 7 doesn't have a native way to mount ISOs. So I might just go ISO Office 2013. Okay. Customize. Just the basics is all I'm going to need. I'll just let that install run. That'll take a few minutes. I'll just pause the video and come back once we're at the other end. Okay. Let's check out Office 2013. Outlook 20. Pin that to the taskbar. Not sure if this is going to work straight off or not, but one thing I forgot to mention is that I just had to update DNS. So we are using the externally routable domain name for Exchange, which is jtairlines.com. So internally, on the internal domain, we want to resolve anything that's mail related with jtairlines.com. So mail.jtairlines.com will point to the Exchange server, as well as the order.discover.jtairlines.com will point to the Exchange server. So I've had to create a split DNS, so added this zone in jtairlines.com, and now internally go ping mail.jtairlines.com. We get the internal IP address as opposed to the external IP address, which is 59 dot something or other. So that will make our connectivity internally a lot easier. Yes, and looks pretty good. Sorry, we're having some. Yeah, this is some. I think it's something to do with Windows 7. Um, it's to do with the activation server. Just double check. I reckon that's all it is. If you go into here and you try to activate, get this error message. And I think I remember last time I ran this lab, the quickest way to fix it. Programs and features, down to our exchange chain, and enter a product key. So I'll just enter a product key and then I'll come back. Okay, so that's been entered, and we'll just hit the continue button. Just see if this does an activation for us. I think I read somewhere a while back it's something to do with TLS. Not 100%, but this was the quick fix for now. It's only on Windows 7 machines. I'll just hit the pause button just while this is reconfiguring Office. Okay, let's see how that works. Yeah, let's just close Outlook, let's reopen. Looks a little better. Yep, beautiful. And it appears we don't have any certificate problems. We can come in here if we hit our control button, right mouse click on Outlook, check out connection status. We're making connection to this Exchange server, RPC over TCP, so that's quite normal in Exchange 2010. So that's really good. The other thing we can try, I've just gone and pre-installed Chrome, but the other thing to try is just webmail. WA. Okay, we need to update. We need to update our machines with the same SSL and ciphers. Just bear with me. Okay, so that's all sorted. So it was just a mismatch in the ciphers, and the reason being is that on this Windows 7 machine, I ran a utility called IIS Crypto. It's just some freeware off the you can just download it from the internet, and I configure the to best practice, which essentially just removes some of the SSLs, the old SSL practices, the cipher suites that are outdated or compromised, anything that's weak. So it just sort of brings your machine up to a more decent level. And what I did, I'd actually ran it on this Windows 7 machine just prior, but not on my Exchange server. So I've just gone and ran that on the Exchange server, just did a quick update, and that's fixed it up straight away. So now we've got a nice secure connection using our valid certificate that we installed on our Exchange server. And we can go in here now and log in. We can say English Australia, fine. Look how old that is, 2009. And beautiful. Okay, so we know that Outlook is working just fine, but the one thing I know that won't be working is mail flow. So whilst I know that I could probably send something out, so if I send something to, let's check the, yep, it's pulled labbing at IT out of the global address book, that's that contact. I do a test send, and I get into gmail.com. sign in. It's my personal email address. Let me gmail.com. I'm just going to test me. I do have it on file somewhere. Let me just double check what that might be. Okay. I'll make it those difficult passwords. I don't think any of that now. Now, mail out might technically work. Can't see anything just now. Did I actually send that in? Sure, it's gone at gmail.com. Not very familiar. Oh, here we go. Maybe went through spam. It has. That's okay. I will be able to fix that up a little bit later. That's probably to do with some of the mail security rules that I might have set up in DNS. But let's test mail coming in. So we go back into here. Actually, if we just switch to our diagram. So we've got our Meraki server, our Meraki appliance that's managing this whole network infrastructure. So I've got mail successfully hitting this server through external DNS. So by ping mx.jtairlines.com, so that's my MX record that I've already created. It's 59.167.206.82. That IP address hits this appliance. So mail will get there just fine. I just need to get mail from here through this link and into our Exchange server. So let's see if we can fix that up. So the way we'll do that is actually have to go into our Meraki appliance and go to firewall. Let's see where we're pointing port 25 on that 82 address. Let's have a look. Boarding rules. There's our 82. So that's my old Exchange server 10.11. It's now 10.12, port 25. And Exchange HTTPS is on 80, going to 83. That to go here as well. Actually, 25 there. I'm not sure which will mail. What's that? So HTTPS would be mail.jtairlines.com. It's going to 83. So that one's going to 82. We don't technically need that one there. And I'm happy with that. 443 and port 25. So that's one component. So that's pretty much now means mail will go to 10.12, and 10.12 says that we must go through 185.6. That is the route to get to the 10.0 network. So that's now inside our pfSense firewall. And what we'll do is we will jump into there. Okay, so let's just quickly log on to our firewall, because this no doubt will be blocking everything on the 185.6 interface. So as you remember, we've got two interfaces. If this is the actual console view of our pfSense box, so the SMTP traffic and the HTTPS traffic has been forwarded to 10.12 via 185.6. That's how we get to the 10 network. So we need to make a file, a couple of rules here to allow port 25 and port 443 through. So let's go into the firewall rules, and we are talking about our WAN link. That's the 185.6. So let's add a rule, IPv4 TCP from any source where the destination is 10.12 and do SMTP first. So this is SMTP traffic to Exchange server. Save. So now we're telling this WAN that any traffic that's destined for 10.12 on port 25 is okay. And what we'll do, we'll just copy that because we're going to make another rule very similar. But instead of SMTP, we want HTTPS 443 for that HTTPS traffic to Exchange server. Apply changes. Okay. Let's just check and see whether or not we can send some mail. So compose a message to administrator@jtl.com. Test send 9:41 p.m. Sent. Back. Outlook. Box. Oh, beautiful. Mail in. So that has worked. So we do now have mail flow, albeit we're hitting the spam box of my Gmail account, mail coming out from here. That's quite common unless you've set up a few security features in your DNS to let other mail environments know that you're a legitimate organization trying to send legitimate email. I'll look at that at a later stage, but I'm pretty happy now. Exchange is set up and I've got a bit of mail flow happening. No doubt we'll be able to easily send email internally. I'll need another couple of client machines to play around with, so I'll probably set them up offline, but that is Exchange 2010 installed, client machine with Outlook 2013 installed, and Mailflow tested. Thanks for watching.